Hello. Okay, so I'm going to go over a practice problem that's dealing with inheritance with classes in Python. So, in class we talked about inheritance, how you can have one class, for example, an employee, be the parent or the superclass of another class. So, manager is referencing employee here, and that means it's the child of employee, or it's inheriting the methods and class variables from employee, but it can customize or do anything else that it wants separate from employee, but it still has access to all the original stuff defined in the employee class. So we have this practice problem here where we're going to have a vehicle class and then a car class that inherits from vehicle. So similar to employee and how manager inherited from employee, we can think that we have a vehicle and then a car is a more specific type of vehicle that we might want to customize. So the car class will override a method from the vehicle and will also use the super function in its constructor to call the constructor of vehicle. So we have a few steps here. First, let's create a vehicle class with the following specifications. We'll do a constructor that accepts make and model, and then make these instance variables, and then a method called start engine, and that just is going to print the engine starts. So nothing too crazy with the methods here, but we just start out like with any normal class. We'll call it vehicle. Then within here we want the constructor, so let's do def underscore underscore init. Remember, it has to have self as the first argument, and then we can add these other two after that. So let's do make and model, and self.make will be equal to make, self.model will be equal to model, and that's it actually. Pretty simple class. Then let's have one called start engine. And as always, you need self as the first argument. And this is just going to print out the engine starts. So pretty simple. So we have that so far. Now we can create a car class that inherits from vehicle with the following specifications. So we're going to do class car, and when we want to inherit from another class, usually you just put a colon after the class name, but if you're ever inheriting, you put parentheses and then the name of the class that you're inheriting from, then the colon. So we'll do that. Now we're on a new line, we're indented, so we also need a constructor. So we'll call, oops, I forgot to put def init self, and that's going to get make, model, and year. So instead of the generic vehicle, the specific class will have something called a year. So do it like we did before, where we'll start with the year this time, is equal to year. But it says here that in the constructor, we want to use super to call the constructor of vehicle, so the super class or the parent class, to initialize make and model. Initialize year as an instance variable. So we've already done that with year here, and I at least like putting super first, and then doing any of the specific variables for car. But if we do super first, it'll get everything from vehicle first, and I just think that's a little bit neater. So if you remember, super will call, super gives us access to anything that we want in whatever the superclass is. In this case, super is referring to vehicle. So if we do super dot underscore underscore init, when we do super dot init, what really we're referencing is this init here, this constructor. And this one is asking for make, model, and self as well, but when we call super, it automatically passes self. So we can just add the make and model in there. So that is going to, when we create a car, it's going to first come in here. It's going to get all of the instance variables from this constructor and apply them to car, and then it will apply year to a car as well. Then it also asks us to override start engine and to print the car's engine roars to life. So let's call this start engine. Oh, fun. It recognized that I'm overriding it, so it actually wrote a lot of the code for me. But we don't actually want it to call the super in this case, so I'm just going to delete that. And we just want it to, oh, we don't even want it to return anything. Let's just print. We're going to print the car's engine roars to life. So there we go. So we have our vehicle class and our car class that inherits from vehicle. They both have a method called start engine. And since they're called the same thing, the child class or the subclass is going to override this one up here. So instead of when we do whatever we call the car.startEngine, it's going to run this one down here instead of this one up here. So let's go down to part 3. Create instances of vehicle and car and call their start engine methods to observe the output. So let's do example vehicle. It's going to equal vehicle, and we need to pass in a make and model Honda Civic. Then X vehicle dot start engine. Make sure you put the parentheses so it actually calls it. And then let's also do one for example car is equal to car. We'll do Mazda CX-5 from 2014. Then if we want EX car, we can also call its start engine method. So we have our two classes. We have the method that is being overwritten in this case. We have a variable that's specific to just one of these instances. In fact, just for fun, we can even print that out. Xcar dot year. And that's a variable that a regular vehicle wouldn't have access to. So I'm just going to set a breakpoint here. So in this line of code, we're going to be making a vehicle and storing it in this variable that we called xVehicle. I'm going to step into there so we can see what's going on. Comes up into here. It passed in Honda and Civic. It's going to assign those to that object. And now xVehicle has those in there, Honda and Civic. Then we can just run the Honda Civic start engine, which is the engine starts. And that makes sense because that is up here. But if we make a car instead of a, actually I just stepped all the way through it. Let me rerun that so we can see the constructor here. Car, when we step into that, it's coming into the car constructor here, but that is being called, as soon as we enter in here, we're going to call the super.init, which is vehicle.init. So let's step into that. So we jump up here, and it's going to assign this car that we have, a make and a model. Then it'll jump back down after that's finished and add any additional specific variables that we want to add there. So in this case, year. Then once we're done with that, we have this xcar object that has Mazda CX-5, that has the start engine method. And since we made a car instead of a vehicle, and we do start engine, because it has the same name, it's going to override, and it's only going to do this method. So if we were to step into this, it jumps up here, it's just going to print out the car's engine roars to life. So There we go. And then we also have access to any variable in the car that might not apply to a generic vehicle. So this is a pretty simple example. The classes are pretty short themselves and they're just printing things out, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what is going on when we have two classes and one of them inherits from the other one. So thank you.